legal right. I mean, you were a prosecutor once, right?
That is correct.
And so you know what I'm talking about as far as making your best case and then guarding against what would be detrimental to the voting process and the rights of all Americans that are citizens and exercise their right to vote. You have any idea the resources that you expended in pursuing the comparison of the different data? And I've got here, I think, your letter or your report, comparison of Colorado's voter rolls with Department of Revenue non-citizen records, March 8, 2011. Do you know what you devoted to that effort in the way of manpower and dollars?
Yeah, I know that we did not expend any additional dollars in our budget. We did expend some manpower. I know I worked several late nights. However, my salary is fixed, so that did not cost the state of Colorado any.
We're not talking about
fees,
extra money.
But,
I mean, we all work within budgets, or we attempt to, and you'll hear the federal government doesn't. But nevertheless, the attempt is made. Let me ask you. You were a prosecutor once. Would you take a case based on the information that you were able to compile? Because I've read your report. Would you present a case that uses words like, to a judge, impossible to provide a precise number, data are inconclusive, incomplete, does not prove, cannot be determined? You wouldn't face any case with that kind of conditioning language, would you?
Well, I think, Mr. Congressman, there's sort of two different frameworks here. One is a prosecutorial framework as far as going forward. A second is whether or not that warrants criminal investigation. And I should say there's a third framework. Is there an administrative way to resolve these uncertainties? What we're looking at in Colorado is not prosecuting, nor are we even looking at criminally investigating.
No, and
what we are looking at, however, is to administratively resolve this. So I would agree with you that that's not adequate to be able to provide a basis for prosecution.
So then let's just work on what you might be able to do administratively. Working with the resources that you do have, who would be those individuals that would be able to assist you in ascertaining why someone who's not a citizen would fill out a registration form? Wouldn't that be, let's say, the Mesa County clerk and recorder? Is that Sheila Reiner? Is that her name?
Yes, sir, Sheila Reiner.
All right. My understanding is she was very concerned about your allegations, and she requested the information of these individuals, obviously within her jurisdiction, and that you refused to provide her with that information. Is that correct?
It's a tentative refusal at this point. We have an agreement with the Department of Motor Vehicles, and we're very concerned about making sure we protect people's private information. So we're still running the legal traps to be able to make sure that we're legally able to share that information with her, if in fact we are. And I believe our tentative conclusions at this point is that we are, but we're still conferring with the Attorney General's office on that. If we're able to share that information without violating those privacy concerns, yes, we will do it. But I think our first concern is to make sure that we're not violating various state privacy requirements.
I just can't imagine that someone like Ms. Reiner would not be entrusted with some information regarding something that comes under the purview of her responsibilities. But we'll move on. Isn't every voter registration as a result of the Help America Vote Act have a provision at the outset that asks the question of whether you are a citizen or not a citizen? And if you're not a citizen, you are not to proceed further with filling out the form.
That is correct. We have had problems in Colorado, however, some administrative errors where people have filled out a voter registration form, said they're not a citizen, yet they were nonetheless registered.
Who's authorized to have someone fill out a registration form? Because I'm familiar with Texas, I'm not with Colorado.
Yeah. The clerks and recorders are the ones who receive that. Unfortunately, we have no verification process in the state of Colorado.
But the individual that presents this form, let's say a motor vehicle individual, a clerk, in Texas, before you can have someone actually fill out a registration form, there is some training. You actually deputize folks, but there is some training involved so that they're placed on notice that a non-citizen is not to fill out this form. That is the first question that they will be asking. Do you not follow that in Colorado?
I'm sorry, I'm unfamiliar with the Texas training.
So in Colorado, anyone can fill anything out, and there are no instructions. If there is an individual who represents the state, the county, or whatever, they're not charged with any responsibility to make sure that that individual is not signing that and the question is posed? Because I think there actually is a simple answer to all this.
I apologize, Congressman. I didn't fully follow that last question. I can say this, however, that people are instructed to read the questions, and to fill them out accurately. I will say that there is, we've seen human error. We've seen our database that allows people to be registered and to vote even though they are in a non-citizenship status. That's a problem with our database that we've recently resolved. And I do also know that there is no verification, and our election officials do not verify the accuracy of any of that information on the voting rolls. And I think that's what gives rise to this problem.
There is an affirmation that subjects somebody to penalties if they lie.
That is correct.
So there is then. There you said there's no verification. All we have is affirmation, and that is the individual that signs it under the penalty of law affirms that all of the information on here is correct.
That is correct.
Okay. And I've way exceeded time. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Chairman.